Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello.
Today we talk with Juan Sanchez. He's the owner and creative director for Baunfire Digital Agency. Hello, Juan. Is that you?
Yep. Hey, how you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing all right. Hey, good to talk to you.
Nice talking with you.
Thanks for taking time for the podcast here.
Of course.
So now you are in the office, but since COVID, you've been pretty much kind of like the only one up there in your space.
Yeah, we've been, everyone's been working from home. We have the space and kind of treat it like a little bit of a tree house where I can go and have less distraction from the little ones at home.
Yeah, because what's the ages of your two kids these days?
4 and a year and a half. So.
Oh, okay. You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, we are in it. We are in it.
Yeah, that's cool. So, hey, yeah, I just wanted to kind of like see like what was even like the impetus of like why you started an agency. Like, how did you even get into that?
Well, I think it all goes back to my parents way back when they were all about education and they sent us to some really good schools, which were not cheap, and they kind of had to scrape up every dollar to get us to be there. But I happened to be surrounded by a bunch of my friends whose parents were a little bit more well off, and in most cases they were entrepreneurs, owned their own businesses. So
Yeah. Where was that at? Where did you grow up at? What area?
in the Bay Area, I went to like St. Chris, Bellarmine, like the typical cat,
Okay.
Route in the Bay, and so I think I had, when you're young, you do these jobs in the summer, and your friends' parents kind of hired you to do it. And what I learned is that these people own their own businesses. My parents worked for companies, and I could tell there was definitely a difference. And they were living differently than we were, and I was making that association. Whether it was true or not, I didn't really know, but I made that association. And then I also it felt real to me, or I think I should say not necessarily real, but available. Like it's possible. Versus so it's like other people are doing it, so why can't I? Type of thing. So that was kind of in the background. And then once when I was young, it's probably just finishing, or just starting college. I started a company just like Baunfire that did websites for companies, and I found it was a way that I could make money without kind of doing that, being a busboy or a waiter in college. And a girl I was actually seeing at the time, her father actually got me a business license for Christmas and was like, you need to understand that this is a business, and et cetera. So kind of like pushed me in that direction. Well, I did that all through college. I went to graduate, and the idea was I was just going to continue this business. Well, it was .com time. I got a friend of my father's that knew I did web, asked if I was interested in interviewing for a company. And I was in San Diego at the time. I flew up to interview. I thought it was just an opportunity to see my parents and interview for a position that I probably wasn't going to take. I got brought in to interview. I interviewed for the position. I told myself that they didn't, I wasn't going to take it. They offered enough that there's no way I could say no. Basically doubled what I They doubled the offer that I was expecting.
Wow. Okay.
And so I ended up working there for this company for about a year and a half, 2 years. Once I was there, I actually got promoted, moved up the company rather quickly for my age, especially, and I got a lot of like insights into different parts of the business and whatnot. I thought this was going to be the new route for me. I was like, okay, maybe I'll go back to get an MBA, become like, my goal is to be an executive, like a CMO or whatnot. And in the second year being there, the company got merged with another company, and they did a big layoff. I was one of the people that got laid off, but they said, hey, we're going to lay you off, but we want you to launch the next site. And the way I took that was, you're actually really good at your job, but somebody else does it cheaper somewhere else,
right,
in another part of the country. So we're going to let you go, which told me that I kind of had no control over what was going on. you know,
And were you and so what you were doing at this time, was it like it was coding? Like you were doing like, I don't know, was it
yeah,
HTML?
I was actually like a web marketing in the very beginning. I started when I first got there. I was like a quote unquote web master back in the day, and then I moved up to like more of a marketing manager, web marketing manager. So
Okay. So you're working with like SEO type stuff,
yeah,
optimizing that kind of
yeah,
stuff?
I don't even think we were there yet. I think it was really just the overall look and feel, and just at that point, it was just the idea that your website is it's still a brochure site, but you are updating on a
Yeah.
regular basis, making it cool. You're setting up for events and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
long story short,
What
I basically took it as an opportunity. I'm like, well, they kept me on for 6 months longer. I stayed, and I used that 6 months to set up what is now Baunfire. And
okay.
a lot of the execs that were there, they didn't they left because they wanted to stay in the Bay Area. The new company was going to be headquartered in Wisconsin, so they didn't want to move there, so they stayed here. And I kind of launched during the dot-com crash.
Oh.
Yeah, which was interesting. But
Yeah, so this is like 2008, 2009, 2000
maybe
what
no earlier. It was like 2003 or something like that. Four. Yeah,
okay. And that's when Bonfire kind of officially began?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So and
Yeah. So you've been at the game for a while.
yeah, it's been a yeah,
You don't seem that old.
yeah. I'm just very immature. No, the yeah, and to be honest, the web hasn't been around that long, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
What's some of the what's some of the biggest changes that you've seen then, from launching in 2003, I mean technology of course, but to 2020, as far as like the industry, what do you think has been some of the big movements?
I think the biggest change is that people now fully realize that the web is more than just a brochure, and it's a sales tool, a
Yeah.
marketing and sales tool. Like it's there, so the value has gone way up from where it used to be, and it was still valued. It was just like a wow. It's like there was brochures back, paper. Like, oh wow, this is a brochure that's digital and you can update it on the fly. You don't have to reprint it. So that was like the initial value. It's like it's just a brochure. But
Yeah.
nowadays, there's so much like it's advanced so much that we know about. It helps us understand our users, user behavior. It helps us to attract those users or reel them back in after they visited. Um, so it's just
Yeah.
extremely powerful.
Yeah, I guess the crazy big difference, right? Especially going from print to digital is just like the data that you can collect, right? I mean,
Yes, and how
that's a
organized that data is today. Because there was a lot of data available, but it wasn't organized. So therefore, most people wouldn't even know how to sift through it and make any sense of it.
yeah.
But now that data is available, it's given to you in formats that like make sense and they're easy to digest, so you can make business decisions based on them. So before, I think the data was there, just or you data analyst that's going to go in and kind of parse it all out and figure out what story it's telling. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Nice colored graphs and charts.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, what would you say is kind of like your approach then as running a digital agency? What would you say, you as the CEO founder, um, how do you approach the business?
Well, for us, we are trying to put out a great product. So we're in order to do that, my first approach is to find a great team because
Yeah,
we can't put out great work without the people since
yeah,
we are a service based business. And then we need to put the time in because even if you have the great, you have amazing talent, if your client isn't allowing you the time or the budget to really dig in and understand their business, their competitors,
yeah,
etc., then it's really tough to do a good job because you're really just at that point doing best practices. So
yeah,
that pre-work is so important because from the we have the design chops and the work that we're going to do is going to look beautiful and that's really great, but the reality is our clients are investing enough money in their sites as far as marketing dollars that they are paying attention to whether or not it is performing. So
Yeah.
the form alone is not enough. It is important. It does. There is some value to that, absolutely. But that um, that strategy and that understanding of their users and the goals they have for those users is so important. And I think that we make sure that our team understands that we're not building cookie cutter websites.
Yeah.
That's not what we're aiming to do, because those ones are devalued pretty quickly. Then it's just who can do it the cheapest.
Yeah.
Ours is how much performance, how much the results and the numbers that we can bring back to the client, so that they can say that our investment was well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it must be, and it seems like it's a. I mean, I would think one of the crazy kind of things that happen, especially when you talk about websites. I mean, there's WordPress and Squarespace and Format, and I don't, you know what I mean. There's like a
Mhm.
zillion kind of template type stuff. How do you think that affects you guys for what you're doing?
Well, there's a time and a place for all those scenarios. So
Yeah.
you just have to help your client understand the pros and cons of each option and what works best, what will be best for them long term. There are cases where some of these, well, a great example is Shopify. It's kind of a similar concept of
Yeah.
Squarespace where
Yeah.
it's mostly done for you, and in that scenario, we find that those work really well, and you can customize them. So for
Yeah.
some clients, they need it's a way that they can accelerate quickly at a lower cost, but then they
Yeah.
have the opportunity to scale. It will scale with them. Or you have scenarios where a client has a short-term need. Maybe there's a big event, and we can use a platform that we normally wouldn't use for their big corporate site. But that if we want to flex our front-end development muscles and do something a little flashy, we can lean on a different platform. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's the same thing as any kind of design, right? I mean, what's the problem? What's the best solution, right? I mean, that's kind
mhm.
of always the way it kind of goes. Um, what for you, for like, what would be success for Bonfire?
For us, success is again, it may sound kind of boring and cliche, but just putting out great work and that our clients are benefiting from. And
Yeah.
we feel that if we can do that, then we're very fortunate to be located in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and our name gets passed around, and people connect with us and want to do more great work with us. So, and
Yeah.
we've also realized that whenever we start working with that type of client that is ideal for us, their circles are similar, so they end up referring us to another client that's very similar to them and that is aligned in what their goals are and et cetera. So it seems to
Yeah.
work out. So that's
What would
kind
you?
of
Yeah. What would you say? What is your ideal client then? Like, what are you looking for?
the there's two ideals. There's one is we get startups that come in. They've gotten some serious funding. They feel like they want to do it right this time. Is how I think of it.
Yeah.
And those clients are really fun because at this point they are a startup, but they definitely have infrastructure in place. They're big enough that they're not run by a few people, and they're not because they're at this level of funding, they have direction. So sometimes you
Yeah.
get into it with a startup that's too young.
Yeah.
They, depending on who they talk to, their business model changes, and that can be a tough.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out their strategy, so it's hard for us to stay in alignment with them. But so that client where they got some serious funding and want to do it right, and then we have that typical tech company that's been in the Bay Area. They're making 500 million to multi-billion a year, and they have a tried and true business and we're helping
Yeah.
them to move the needle to make that bit more right. So we're
Yeah.
making their site more efficient, increasing conversions, and just making that engine more and more efficient. That's kind of like the other option. Then you have the fun big clients like Google, and you had to do something that's you got to spend a lot of time on and give it a lot of attention,
Yeah.
and has a big splash. So those are always fun as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, so you say like, of course, the first thing is to hire, like talented people, a team. What are some of the things that you like look for in somebody? Like, are you finding as you've been doing this now for a while and leading teams that you kind of like can kind of see a personality type or smell out something that you kind of look for?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is finding. Well, we want someone to be a good human being, number one, because we just want
Yeah.
to be around good people. So that goes without saying. But um, another key like personality trait or whatnot would be that there's passion. That when
Yeah.
someone is doing it out of passion and that they love what they do, those folks tend to learn faster, self educate, share, collaborate, no ego. So I think that that's key. And then the talent has to be there.
Yeah.
And that's easy to sniff out. I mean, we know kind of from a
Yeah.
design perspective or development, we can see work that they've done recently, et cetera. So that's not
Yeah.
as tough to figure out. But it's finding those folks that are really excited about what they're doing. They want to be the best. They even if they're beyond most, they still feel like they're learning. So that helps us to stay up on trends, because
Yeah.
our team is naturally wanting to grow and see what's new and what's next. So that
Yeah.
keeps us on the kind of cutting edge of what we do, which is mostly, web.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. The hard skills of someone who's has the skills to design, right? That's easy to see that in a couple seconds. But yeah, but those human kind of emotional team dynamics are really kind of like the real difficult thing.
Yeah.
What did you have like how what do you do for like your interview process? Do you take people out to dim sung? Are you
We get a private
you
investigator. No, I'm just kidding.
you put them in a barrel, roll them down a hill. Do you put them all in kinds of crazy game scenarios and
Yeah,
stuff like that?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Do you have something or
I think we're a little old school in that we really, we want to get to know them. So, so we definitely make sure that our team is involved in meeting the candidate and multiple teams, um, talking to them, seeing how everyone jives with them, and
yeah,
we also let our, like it's not just like myself and one other person is interviewing and then we make a decision and everyone accepts that we run through with our team and say, hey, does anybody have any, maybe offline, not on the conversation, but is there anything that any concerns or whatnot that we can look into? So they might have questions they want to ask about, and then sometimes the things I wouldn't have thought of, I'm like, oh, that's a good point, we should ask that. So
yeah,
and then it also helps validate that the team decided to bring someone on, right? So
yeah,
that's part of our team. And,
yeah,
doesn't mean that everyone is going to be, every time everyone's like all in the same direction, but at least everyone's voice was heard, we
yeah,
can talk it out. We are not we're not 100-person agency. We're still boutique size. So it's still kind of important for everyone to
yeah,
collaborate. And then this remote concept is new to us too, and we actually
yeah.
did just make a remote hire.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that if you've hired anybody in this time. Yeah, so did you do the full interview process kind of like over Zoom and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and it went, surprisingly well. I mean, it didn't seem any different, to be honest. I think maybe
Yeah,
we've just gotten used to it. It's been almost a year, um,
right.
but yeah, it's really. We'll see. I think it's going to be great. The only tricky part is, or not tricky, but selfishly, I wish they were here so that when we have gatherings with the team, it's easier and more convenient. Like
Yeah,
if we want to go out and just grab lunch together, we can all do that. That part gets lost, but I think there's ways around that. Just having
yeah,
them visit quarterly or whatnot. But it actually opens up the pool of talent like quite a bit. Uh,
right.
it- you know, so
Yeah, you can hire. Yeah, from anywhere in the United States. Yeah. So then, what are you doing for? How are you handling team kind of morale? Like I know you guys. I've been in your office a couple times, gone to lunch with you guys. Like it's a very kind of fun environment, working hard, but still Like you seem like you're kind of a social animal, right? You like that kind of uh, fun. So what are you doing for team morale now that everybody's kind of like out and about? How do you kind of manage and do that?
We've done most of it, via Zoom. We did try to do it in person, but then I think we backed out because I think a few people were nervous. We didn't want anyone to get uncomfortable. So,
Yeah,
we've really done it via Zoom, and we try to now. And like you mentioned, our team is pretty tight, and a lot of folks have been here for a bit, so everyone knows each other really well. So
yeah,
in general, people are already just keeping up with one another. I think we have a younger team, or a different generation than mine, where doing everything on their phone and whatnot is kind of a more normal. So they might not
yeah.
even notice the difference.
Right. Yeah,
Whereas someone like you said, for me personally, I like to be around people. I want to, let's go to have lunch. Let's go, more about the gathering. So I think, if anything,
yeah.
it's probably been tougher on me than anyone else, which is why I probably still go to the office and,
Yeah. Hoping somebody shows up there.
exactly.
You're like, oh, the UPS man.
Exactly. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, hey, let's talk for 20 minutes.
Wait. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's cool. Uh, yeah. So, what would you say for you? What have you learned in COVID for you personally, as an individual, not so much as head of the agency?
The Well, let's see. What I've learned. Well, one thing I've learned. This is a little bit about the agency, but the importance of hiring well, because we did not skip a beat when we went remote. And if
Yeah.
you asked anyone on my team prior to COVID, they would like, I know Juan does not like remote working. Like he really wants us to be here. Like he
Yeah.
really wants the team to be here and collaborate in person and whatnot, right? There was no
Yeah.
choice. So, and I was gonna, and we actually started working remote 2 weeks prior to having to work remote, because I just kind of saw this coming, and
Yeah.
I'd seen in the news what was going on overseas and whatnot, and so
But would you say then, just to put a pause on that story? So before that, though, your kind of office culture, whatever, was you work, you come there and you work, right? So if I lived in San Francisco, I'm going to drive into San Jose, downtown San Jose. If I lived in, you know, Morgan Hill, I'm going to drive in. Like you wanted the team to be there. Was that kind of like the general? Yeah. Okay. So then a couple weeks before, you kind of saw the writing on the wall, started to go remote, and okay, back to the story.
we basically went remote, and it literally was like nothing changed. And well, first of all, there's a lot of things going on in my mind as far as business wise, sales, et cetera. What's
Yeah.
going to happen? But just the day to day, literally, we were just doing our thing, and there was no
Yeah.
difference. And it was, and I think, like I said, that's what like I learned. I was talking to a friend. I was like, we've hired really well. We have very responsible people that are talented and that have pride in their work and want to do the right thing. And so everyone just
Yeah.
stepped up. No, it wasn't like I was like, some people were kind of slacking off, or you didn't know where they were. Or, it was like everyone was
Right.
like all hands on deck, getting it done. Um,
That's cool.
Very thankfully, the business has actually been growing through this time. Uh,
Yeah.
we're very thankful for that. So we haven't seen any downturn for us, so
Yeah.
far. We hope that we don't run into that, but
Yeah.
everyone's been able to.
So would you say I wonder, even though you guys were all in the same location, I mean, a lot of the communication, especially with clients, is still through email, and you probably use something for your projects like a Slack or a Rike or a Asana or something like that to keep
Yeah, so
things
all
going,
those
right? So
platforms were already in place. So yeah,
yeah,
we didn't. There was not like, oh, how are we going to get the file? Yeah, we'd already fully moved to the cloud on almost on every platform. So
yeah,
it was, as far and even onboarding now, now that that's the way we work, onboarding is amazing. Like brought someone starting in a week, and basically get them up and running, get a laptop up and running in a matter of hours, and ship it off, and they're
yeah.
they're rolling. So
Yeah, you set them up on the password for the whatever the VPN or whatever it is, and bam, they're ready to go. Yeah, that's kind of fun.
yeah,
Well, actually, I've even seen that for us too. Like it's pretty surprising. I mean, I'm very much like you. I'm used to being around people. There's like great coffee shops, so I try to visit each one every day and meet people there, try to connect with folks. But um, it's surprisingly interesting how much you can get done without even ever seeing a real person.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, and like I said, I think these younger generations don't. For them, it's because the phone is kind of their social platform that doesn't even bother them. I think, like I said, I think it bothers me more than it bothers them. Like I kind of
Yeah.
still do want to see people, and I think like
Yeah.
like, hey, you socially distance, have a coffee or something like that. Like I'm probably more
Yeah.
willing to do that than some people. They're like, well, why would I do that? We could just text or
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's just not the same thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, then how about for you, just kind of on the personal level, you and your family, how's that going with the COVID? I mean, I know you're coming. How often do you drive into the office? A couple times a week, or
I come here. I come here most every day. I do half days on Fridays. The I
is
will
that
say
too? Does it give you kind of like the separation between work and private? Is that part of it too, or
that's
you
part
know?
of it. I'm also a side passion is that we're like renovating a house and doing lots of different projects. And if I stay home, I enjoy that so much that it will distract
Oh
me.
yeah,
So I just
right.
I need to stay away from, you know. But I do like
Yeah,
to. I kind of compartmentalize. So I want to work at work and I want to be with family at home. I think
yeah,
that I used to work around the clock before I had a family and before I was married, and because I was like I could get get as much done as possible.
yeah,
But I really like that when I get home, I do not work. I rarely open. I don't even crack the laptop open. You know,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
because I want to be. I want to. I'm trying to be present for the kids. The kids are so much fun. I think for us, having the kids around has made COVID tolerable because at their
yeah,
ages of that they don't even know what's going on really. Our 4-year-old,
yeah,
I mean, she knows that we have to wear masks and there's something going on, but she doesn't. It doesn't really bother her, and they're just so goofy and fun and full of
yeah,
life, and it's a nice. It's nice to have them around and just keep us busy and at
yeah,
those ages
yeah.
also they're learning so much it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's probably in some ways kind of like the good age, right? After you start, I mean, I really feel for people who have kids in elementary school, have
Oh yeah.
multiple kids and they're in elementary school right now. Oh my gosh, I think I would die.
Yeah, and it's tough for them because they've already made all these friends. They want to go do things. They're very active. They had a little bit of they had freedom, and now that freedom's been pulled way back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
So for you, what's kind of like your guiding philosophy of life? What's your mission statement for what makes Juan tick?
I think I if when I do something, I want to do it right, and I think if that comes down to like with work, that's like if it can be done better, I want to do it in a better way. And also, I don't assume that the way it's always been done is necessarily the right way. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, but always looking for
Sure.
ways to improve. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that
Would your wife say you approach your marriage relationship that way?
maybe I definitely our home or in all of my projects that way for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that's always been me. Like even since I was a little kid, like I've always wanted to
Oh
build and
yeah.
make things, and if I was told it was supposed to be done a certain way, I would challenge it to see if there's another way.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's talk about a little bit like, this is the big thing. Whenever you talk about anybody who's doing anything with design, it always comes to the horror stories of clients and stuff like that. But what's kind of like the way that you approach client relationships?
Well, I think when we are first introduced to a client, we've been doing this long enough that you can kind of tell if it's going to be and a client that you may not want to work with because they just may not be on the same page. So we try to feel
Yeah.
that out as much as possible. But then in any case, in any scenario, when you're working with any partnership, uh,
Yeah.
you you're not going to see eye to eye on everything or do everything the exact same way. So we really try to look for any of those risks that could be out there. It's like, hey, maybe the client is overwhelmed with a lot of different things, and we're going to need to help them out more because normally a client would be able to do, they would be able to pitch in on certain areas, but we're going to have to be there to help them. So we're trying to understand where they're coming from,
Yeah.
and be in their shoes so that we can be the best partner for them. Because we also realize they're like the company is our client, but the person that we're interfacing with is also our client, and we want to make them
Yeah.
look good, and we want to help them. We want to lift
Yeah.
them up, right? So, and not they're all everyone's different, so some may
Yeah.
be more organized and some may be less organized, and that's when we know where we need to pitch in more, um, to get things moving. Or an education process, we want to make sure they look good in front of everyone and they know why we're making the decisions we're making, so we want to make sure we're educating them as much as
Yeah.
possible. But
Yeah.
it's just really trying to treat them as a partner versus just a client. um, I think is important, and I think they really appreciate that because at the end of the day, like I said, whoever owns the project, they probably have MBOs attached to it. They're trying to move their career, and this is something for their portfolio. And so
Yeah.
we're helping them, and what can we do to help, basically.
Yeah. What do we think is like the biggest challenge for uh, Silicon Valley agencies, like people who are living kind of like in this valley? What do you think is like the biggest challenge for them?
As far as just running an agency or growing it, or
Yeah, both. Let's do both.
um,
You can start. Let's start with running, then go to building.
I think being willing to take the risk. Oh, so deciding to do one thing really well is what's worked out for us.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of agencies fall in this, they want to do everything. They want to try to do everything. And then what ends up
Yeah.
happening is they don't have great process for anything because they don't have the time to build that process because they're doing
Sure.
so
Yeah.
many different types of projects. And then their talent in house has to be a jack of all trades. So then that means none of them are really focused on one specific area.
Yeah.
So then they're doing average work, and then they're not building portfolio, and then they're probably making more mistakes because they haven't done this one thing, thousands
Yeah.
of times, and know how to assess risk, create great process, etc. So I think that
Yeah.
that is something that I think, it's easy to fall into that, right? Somebody comes to you with a project that's not really totally in your wheelhouse, but you're like, oh, it's more revenue, and you take it on, and then it
Yeah.
becomes, I think, a distraction for the team. So I have to say, like for us, like since we've been focusing on web, our process is amazing. Like we have, it doesn't mean that it always works exactly. You tweak it sometimes for depending on the project, but the core of our process is really
Yeah.
strong. So we give our customers an amazing experience. Like throughout the process, a lot of visibility. We can assess risk really early on because we've done this for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Onboarding new people is easier because this is how we do things, and then it's nice too. Someone new comes along, they have ideas, they came from another environment, and we is you know so we our process isn't like etched in stone. It's like it's ever evolving, but we do
Sure.
have a process. And when you focus on too many services, it's really hard to do that for everyone because the amount of investment that we've made, the time investment in building that process. I mean, to do it for 20 different services would take, a lot of time.
Yeah.
So
So if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, we want this website, and then we also want you to uh, direct and put together a 20-minute documentary of our company," you would say, "Hey, that's not our." You would farm it out, or you would say, "No, we're just going to take the website," or how would you handle something like that? And it's going to be, a $5 million project.
yeah, so you typically will. we'll say that this is not in our wheelhouse, but we do have partners that can do
Partner.
this. And
Yeah.
sometimes we will, say, hey, you can go direct or it can be on our paper. Like sometimes they don't want to have to have multiple
Yeah.
vendors, so they'll just want it to be underneath our umbrella. But, we're just transparent that that's not what we do.
Yeah.
I would rather let them know that than us try to fumble
Pretend.
and then ruin our reputation. And then when they move on to the next project or company that they go to, they don't bring us in because they had a bad experience. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
never, yeah. I mean, faking it. I think at the point where we're at right now, we can't fake it. Maybe when we first started, we did a little bit of that, but
Yeah. Fake it till you make it type of.
yeah. But I think right
Yeah.
now, if we did that, we just really hurt our reputation. And
Yeah.
people get it. I mean, nowadays agencies are more niche. Like they are like, hey, we do web, we do branding only, we do you know videos, etc. Like it's
Yeah.
not, and I think even the clients know that. It makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
you're not going to
Yeah.
hire the person that painted your house to do your kitchen remodel.
Yeah. To do the plumbing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's disaster out of the gate. Yeah.
Sure, they probably
Um,
figure it out, but it's going to take a little bit longer and a few more mistakes.
yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So, so we have to have lunch because
Yes.
you bailed on me. Now I don't know how we're going to do it. How are we going to do this? What's going on in our world, Juan? Why is there no vaccinations and we continue to be almost a year? You predicted it though. I remember I saw you that one time downtown, which was like about the first week, or maybe it was right before, right? And you had told me like, yeah, this is going to be a long haul. And I was like, okay, crazy Juan.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny because it's almost part of our DNA a little bit as a country that like we kind of have done. I don't know. It's almost, see a lot of that like you're not going to tell me what to do type of thing, and
Yeah, totally.
you know it's tough. And there's different generations, and there's different, and then it's political, and you
Yeah.
know I think that personally I was hoping that it would be something that I'm hoping maybe it will. I think
Wait, hold on. You totally did you walk away?
sorry about that. Yeah, the
Okay.
I was saying it could be some. I was hoping that, or I am hoping, because I know we're still in this, but this could be something that unifies our country versus divides. And it's sad that it's has
Yeah.
divided us quite a bit. But maybe we can
Yeah.
turn around. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, even if I can't get, it's just the way I look at it, and I don't know all the facts, and I'm sure no one does. I'm sure that they're not giving the public all the information, but
Yeah.
as long as those hospitals are slammed and people are, and some people can't get in, I mean, I think that shows that there's a problem.
Yeah.
That's enough for me to realize that something's up. And
Yeah.
if it means that, you got to stay on Zoom or whatnot, I think you got to do it. And I think if we can do it right once, it'd be a lot better than dragging this on and hurting the restaurants for a year. I mean, if we just do it right the
Yeah.
first time, even though it will be painful for companies, for businesses, and I feel really bad for retail and for restaurants. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends
Yeah.
that own restaurants, and it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the sooner we do it right, we can get back. But if we, or the other option is we just do what we're doing. We wait for the vaccine, and it's going to take a lot longer and be more painful and cost the economy a lot. It's tough. It's
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
a lot, and then like I said, it's politically charged, so that makes it even tougher.
Yeah, I think I mean, you mentioned a good point that I thought was really interesting is like it could have been a unifying. I think there's still, right, you said there's still going to be that kind of American rebellion, like you can't tell me what to do. But it could have been an opportunity to say like, really like we're in this together. And I think, in the beginning, maybe there was some kind of feeling of like that, but it was pretty quick. People were like, I'm not going to wear a mask, right? There's the no maskers and the maskers. But then you saw, when you saw those kind of like videos and things from Italy, people singing on their balcony every night. And you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You really can get like, wait a minute, like if we make our common enemy what is really the enemy, a disease,
Yep.
rather than each other, we could unify for a season.
Mhm.
But I don't know, maybe that's not politically uh, efficient or expedient or whatever you
Yeah,
say.
it was
Yeah,
unfortunate that it happened in an election year. I will say, I think that
yeah,
probably did not help at all. Um,
yeah.
but
Crazy, crazy times. Well, what would you say then for what do you think is the biggest social issue of our time? Just to go take it deep.
yeah, um, I think one that is pretty obvious is like this just divide of people. I think in my opinion, I think there's this 24/7 news that's going on both sides, and
Yeah,
it's entertainment at this point. And is it new? Like, how much of is it news? I was telling a friend, like, should there be a label that says this is like opinion
yeah,
show, and then if there
right.
is real news, let it truly be factual. Because right
Yeah,
now, if you're in your world of wherever you lean, if you lean right, you lean left, and you're in that world, then you're only going to hear what you want to hear, and therefore it's going to support everything you hear
yeah,
is going to support one direction, and it doesn't give you a
yeah,
kind of both sides, and that you get to make a choice. It's almost like you only hear it's a one-sided conversation, and I don't think
yeah,
that's healthy. Um,
yeah,
and people don't do their own research. They don't have the time, so they're not going to watch the news and then go off and do their own research. So you know, is there, how does that occur? And they're motivated, the CNNs, the Foxes, and they're motivated to keep you watching. That they
yeah,
need, and so whatever they can do to keep you there, make it sticky, they're going to do that. And I think
yeah,
that has been. I mean, it's been around for a little bit, but it's still fairly new, and I think that definitely has helped to divide the country. You know,
yeah.
and even the
It's
rhetoric, even I the rhetoric on the shows are, it's just it's obvious. Like, it used to be like, oh, I think this one leans this way. It's like, okay, there's no question
right.
anymore.
Yeah,
They're not hiding it
yeah,
at all.
yeah,
That there's bias
yeah,
on both
yeah.
sides.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, I remember talking to somebody who was a journalist, right? And they were saying like they wanted to have like equal balance of the news and all that kind of stuff. And they were talking to their, higher up editor and all that kind of stuff. And they were saying like, you know, it's never unbiased because somebody's got to choose which story is going to run. Just the mere, even if you're doing it truthfully, you have only so much space, you have only so much time, you have only so many writers. So you're already kind of shaping opinion, future, culture by the stories you tell and by the stories you don't tell. And sometimes not telling is just as damaging as telling, right? Like, so we think we're all informed, but then there could be another story that's just not told that would actually change. It's pretty, yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. The other thing that I'm thinking, and you're kind of in, well, I don't know. I mean, you're mainly doing websites. You're not necessarily doing like apps, right?
No,
And
we mostly focus on websites. The only thing that we will sometimes do is we will sometimes do branding for our clients, if like, and that's
sure,
usually that scenario where it's a startup, well funded, and we're like, we need to polish that up, to
sure.
elevate your brand. That's we got to do some work. But
Yeah. So you don't deal with clients then or that are doing something kind of like in the realm of social media uh,
not
development or
really.
anything. Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing when we talk about the biggest, kind of like social, issue of information that we have. Like when, Twitter, I think it's great. Twitter's like marketing, marking things that are saying like, oh, this is not necessarily a truthful tweet.
Right.
And Facebook is getting, kind of slammed. At the same time, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what is, how much censorship is coming in, and why is Twitter responsible for the news when they're providing a platform, just like the telephone company isn't being held responsible for the conversations people are having on the phone, you know?
Yeah.
It's just weird. We're in a weird time.
Well, I think this is the first time there's been a platform available that allows. Okay, for example, the only way to get a huge audience was to be, let's say, on the radio back,
Yeah.
and then it was television, right? But in
Yeah.
order to be
Yeah.
the person on the radio or on the television, that was a small set of people, right? This is a
Yeah.
platform that allows
Yeah.
many people to have their own platforms and their own audiences, and it's so their speech actually, if, in other words, if I had an opinion and I have my circle of friends and everyone knows that Juan thinks
Yeah.
he's nuts, it's not going
Yeah.
out to a broader audience than maybe, than the three friends I have. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No, but it's like now, these people have millions and millions of followers, and so it is interesting though, because then
Yeah.
you're like, is that freedom of speech? But then
Right.
really
Yeah.
they're using a service that is owned by a company, so the company can make the rules. You can just not use that service
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
want to. And then
And
I think
so can the government come in and tell a company what op- excuse me,
that
what opinion and what voice they need to have?
we're gonna find out, I think.
Yeah.
Because the government
That's
at the same time, I'm sure, has enjoyed the fact that they can control the narrative, right?
yeah.
To
Right.
keep the masses and society in, you know, under control, quote unquote. I don't know, and not it's not that insane, but make it sound scarier than it is. But I'm saying, like, but now that's like unraveling a bit, and I'm sure that it's like they can't control the narrative completely anymore. I mean, you
Well,
see
that's
other
the thing.
countries doing it. I mean, they're banning
Yeah.
people. They don't. They like, you put a piece of content up, they'll just take it down.
Yeah.
So they do it on the regular. We haven't had that before. So this is kind of like the first taste of that.
Yeah. It is it's just kind of the irony. I mean, the web, what they call it is like, the great democratizer or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so anybody can have a voice. Social media, you can put your website up, sell whatever product you want, right?
Mhm.
But then at the same time, how is that really what we want? Do we want everyone's opinion out there?
Yeah,
Yes, we do, but should you censor? I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma, and you're a part of it as you're creating these websites for these companies. You were spreading lies, Juan.
yeah, exactly.
These marketing lies.
Well, and also it's we're going off into another realm right now, but you also see with these kids, they're trying to get attention, and they're trying to get likes, and they're trying to get followers, and they might be doing things that they would not normally. I mean, it happened when you're in high school, right? People would do things to get attention. Now they're doing it on
Yeah,
a grander scale, and
yeah,
now that competitiveness is even bigger, and then it's like, how is that going to shape like the youth and the way they
yeah,
look at the world? Like,
yeah.
people are making a living just by you know
Skateboarding with a cranberry juice.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So then, what would you say then for you? I mean, like everybody always talks about design is changes the world, affects the world. I mean, how do you feel for you and Bonfire? In all these kind of cultural things we're talking about, your middle Silicon Valley. How do you feel? What's your role in that, and what are you doing in, and to what extent? I mean, I think it's fine if you're providing clients with great work. I mean, but what's your kind of approach and thoughts on that?
On as far as like the social standpoint.
Yeah, for you, like you guys in this social uh, context of this world that we're in, what is Bonfire? How does Bonfire fit in?
Well, I think we are trying to we're trying to be authentic, and we're trying to you know share what we do that is real. So we're not trying to be something that we're not. And I think that's just modeling for others. You know, not trying too hard, but definitely showcasing what we're up to.
Yeah,
And we don't really get too political or anything when it comes to the social platforms, just because we respect that people have opinions and it's okay to
Yeah.
have an opinion, and our opinion isn't necessarily right. So we kind of, you know, from that perspective, we just try to respect what other people are up to and what they're thinking about, and listen, and
Yeah.
and someone has a completely different opinion on, you know, why not listen? There's a reason why they feel this way. So,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of not judging it, immediately. And
Yeah.
that's really what we're doing. We don't, we like to be present, on all these social platforms, but again, we're not. Our reputation has really been through relationships,
Yeah.
so we don't lean on it too hard. It does help with some of our talent acquisition, like people that find us, because a lot of the
Yeah.
designers and stuff will follow it. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Would there be any client that you may approach, that's some, I don't know, some industry or something that would approach you to do a website that you would say, no, we're not going to do that, even if it was like a lucrative job, that you would say, no, we're not going to build a website for them, for you
we did
guys?
have one. It was like a porn site, to be honest, and we were just like, this we're not into it. Yeah, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like, I don't know. It's just I could pick other clients. So, and then there's nothing wrong with it, and not judging it or anything, but it's just like, for whatever reason,
It wasn't
it wasn't
your,
the fit for us. It wasn't even the type of client we normally take on. I think they just
yeah.
knew the technology and whatnot, but
Yeah.
we were just like, we just passed. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there are some industries even that are, that just aren't. We're not focused on those, so they're not a great fit regardless.
Yeah. 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 They probably wouldn't come to you for that anyway. Cool. All righty. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Conversation, man, from starting an agency to solving global problems.
Yeah, one, one day.
Yeah. Cool. Then, well, thanks for your time, and yeah, let's definitely pick up, and we can get a social distance coffee at Paper Moon right across the street from your office.
Sounds good. Thanks, Daniel.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
To find out more about Baunfire, go to their website at baunfire.com. That's BAUN fire, and also on their social media, Baunfire. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Time Alone by Mild Monk. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Mild Monk Music.